Facebook. If you're watching this on replay, put hashtag replay so I know you're here. We're going to cover some interesting money making tips today. Hope you're going to have fun with this. So, hope you're well. But what's going on, everybody? Hey, question for you. Have you ever wondered why schools don't teach you how to make money? I'm going to dive into that today and talk about the most important skill that you need to know and master if you want to actually create money and create more freedom in your life. If that sounds interesting to you, be sure to like this, share this, and do all those things. My name is James Zhang. If we haven't met before, originally I was actually intending on being a medical doctor, went to UC Berkeley, did the traditional path, then got into entrepreneurship. And for the past decade plus, we've built multiple seven-figure sales teams and now live quite a fun life. And I want to help you become a seven-figure sales leader as well too. And what don't schools teach? They don't teach you sales. And it's interesting because I remember growing up, it's like sales and money was one of those topics that was just off limit. I wonder if that was for you the same thing. We never talked about the dinner table. We never talked about it in school. In fact, I remember super clearly when I went to UC Berkeley and I started to understand that if I wanted to make money, it's probably wise to learn how to do business. And even the business school didn't really teach you how to do business. They taught you how to manage other people's businesses. But how about our own? And I had to unteach myself and train myself with different things. So I took a course, and it was this rogue professor who was a successful entrepreneur that taught at UC Berkeley just for fun. At the time, I was aiming to be a medical doctor, and I thought that was the way to success. But I realized that a lot of my friends are graduating with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. And even if they tried to pay it off, they'd be maybe 30 to 40 years old. Even right now, my friends that are professionals, and I love them, we love our professionals, but there's a cost to it, right? They're still paying off debt. So I ventured out, and I remember I was taking this course, and he taught a personal finance course. I ended up being his TA, teacher's assistant. And one day we were just grading some papers on the side, and he shared with me something interesting. He said, James, I wanted to bring a sales course into UC Berkeley. And I'm like, well, what happened? And what he told me was that he basically got laughed off campus. Here's UC Berkeley, prestigious public university, known for their research and their smarts and everything. And they thought sales was beneath them. So they did not want to teach their students sales. And when I first heard that, I'll admit, my first reaction was sales is sleazy. Right? My feelings are sales is beneath me. Like that was what I was trained to think about sales. But on the flip side, if you actually think about it, everything in life is sales. And what is sales? Sales is simply conveying the value of something where someone else sees it too and they take action on that. If you think about it, sales is important even if you wanted to get a job. You have to sell your own value to an employer to go get a job. In the dating world, we got to sell your value that someone else sees value in you to actually say yes to go on that date. Best sale ever made was my now wife of 10 years. But in business, and especially in making money, if you want to make money and you want to create wealth, then we must learn how to sell. And I started to scratch my head and I was so curious. I'm like, well, why is it that UC Berkeley or most prestigious, quote unquote, prestigious universities out there don't teach us how to sell, don't teach us how to make money? It's because the design of the institution is completely different. There's a saying that Jim Rohn says, which is formal education gets you a job, self education makes you rich. Formal education makes you a living, self education creates freedom. So the question is, what do you want? That's what I was asking myself. Do I want accolades and kind of the perception of prestige saying that I was super smart and like a piece of paper saying I was smart? Or did I actually want my bank account to reflect a lifestyle and freedom for my future family? And I started to realize I have been swindled. I have taken the wrong philosophy, and nothing bad about a formal education. I love learning, but I think it's important to understand, and it changed my life when I understood that I had to learn something different. So I want to talk about sales a little bit, and I mentor sales leaders. I want to mentor seven-figure sales leaders because if you learn how to sell, it changes your life. Seriously, I look back in my life now, I'm like, wow, I'm so grateful that I did. And once I learned how to sell and scale that sales, well, now we make more than doctors make without the debt, without the stress. And I'm so grateful that someone came by and shared with me those principles. So let's talk a couple of frameworks on sales. And let's debunk the myth first. Sales is sleazy. Sales is beneath us. Sales is something that's second class. The question is, where does that come from, and is that true? I had to detangle that myself because let's be real. It doesn't matter if you know how to sell, if you have the skill. If you feel deep down subconsciously that sales is sleazy, you're not going to make much money. If you're scared to sell, then it's not going to work well. Well, the reason why that has happened is there's connotations that are false. And I think a really obvious one is we have this perception of used car salesmen, right? That they're sleazy, that they do things that are not integrous. Or maybe you've had a sales experience. Who here has ever had a bad sales experience where you felt like that salesperson was just looking at you as a dollar sign, right? That is bad sales. Like that is sales that is not effective. But what is sales actually? Sales is simply providing the value for someone else and solving their problem, right? Salespeople are one of the most valuable people in any business because it doesn't matter if you're the best product in the world. If it's not being sold, then the consumer will not get the value. So, great sales actually feels really good. Case in point, we were preparing for a meeting last week. We had a first time ever corporate meeting for our wellness business out here in San Diego. And corporate was out. We grabbed some hot pot together and we had the most amazing waitress. Have you ever had been served really well before at a restaurant? This waitress was perky. This waitress was interested in us. This waitress gave us good recommendations on exactly because the menu was really big and it was really confusing. And she gave us an honest recommendation. And she said, if I were you, I would do this. And made it so much easier for us to just make a choice and have a good experience. And guess what? We were super happy, tipped well. And I'm like, that was a good sale. Sales, when done effectively and right, helps and betters someone else's life. And what a salesperson does is it helps educate somebody to make an informed decision on something that they want. Okay. So let's break down what sales process actually is then. Sales is solving a problem, right? And you're kind of expediting that factor. So that means first, if you want to be a good salesperson of anything, it'd be selling you to a job. This could be selling you to a spouse, or let's just talk about sales in a business aspect, right? You're selling anything. The best salespeople I've realized aren't the most charismatic necessarily. They're not the one that are the product expert necessarily. The best salespeople, they care about the needs of the other person because sales is solving someone else's problem. So, you know what salespeople do? Salespeople are the ones that ask a lot of questions. They are, you might want to jot this down, they're interested, not interesting. When that epiphany hit me, I realized I could sell wow because I'm naturally a very shy person. I used to be so shy I could even order food at a restaurant myself because I was scared of a stranger. Right? So like sales was just not I thought sales meant you had to be a really good communicator. But really, sales is about listening more than it is about speaking. So when you're with the prospect or somebody who you want to make the life better of, it's about asking questions. So for sake of example, we sell a wellness product, right? We sell hormone balancing drops. And there's the best salespeople of these drops, what they do is this. They talk with their prospect and they'll ask them some questions. They'll say, "What are your health goals?" "I want to lose 20 pounds." They might take it another step further. "What do you think has held you back from losing 20 pounds?" They might take another step deeper. "What would it mean to you if you were to lose 20 pounds?" Do you see how that works? Professional salespeople, effective sales leaders, are the ones that care for their people enough to ask questions, to understand the needs so well to the point that they can then provide a solution. So you have to know the need. All right. Once you know the need very well, this could go for anything that you sell. This is why now once you know once you know how to sell something, it doesn't matter what you sell as long as you believe in it, that it could affect the life and impact the life of someone else. You can sell anything. That's why people, once they learn this skill, they can go to any single business, any single company, any single product, any single service, and they can sell anything because there's an art to it. So, step number one in selling well is getting to know the prospect's needs. Okay, if you're still with me, put a one in the comments below. Okay. Once you know that, number two is educating that prospect on what you're selling can solve that need. We call that a presentation. And this also includes that if you cannot solve the problem with what you're selling, the most professional thing to do is to say, "I cannot help you with this." The best salespeople in the world aren't the ones that can sell everybody. Some people think it's like boiler room status and it's like we're arm wrestling people to say yes. No, professionals are the ones that can give honest recommendations and they're high in integrity. Right? If you want long-lasting sales, if you want a seven-figure business, then the only way you can have a long-lasting business is if your customers know your business as an ethical one that's high in integrity, that gives honest feedback. You might be able to get someone to buy once, but if you lie to them or if you mislead them, they will not buy again. Salespeople that are good, they're not looking just for the one time, they're looking for the lifelong relationship. Right? So, step number two in the sales process is then presenting to them enough information about your solution on why it can help them. What does this mean? This means that a good salesperson, a good presenter, is not somebody that is able to regurgitate a ton of information to somebody. I used to think that I had to tell everything about the products I was selling to everyone. And it was like if I just beat them over the head long enough, then they would submit and they would say yes. And I would tell you that might work for some because they might be sympathetic for you and be like, just get out of my face right now. But I'd submit that if you want a seven-figure business and a long-lasting business, that's not going to last long. So your presentation can be short or long. Your presentation just needs to be long enough to convey the value to that other person to solve their problem. And we're only solving that problem. Okay. So, for example, I'll just use what we sell. We sell these hormone balancing drops. And if I start to talk to the prospect and then I start to get into other topics or other features, I'll just use hormone balancing, right? Let's say these drops, let's use that 20-pound loss situation. I know their goal is 20 pounds, and that's it. Okay. I got it very clear. These can do a lot more benefits. Like I know they can do like a bajillion things. Um, a professional salespeople will not oversell. They won't talk about how this can also aid with menopause if that person is not going through menopause. They will only talk about interested information, not interesting. I hope you jot that down. Only talk about relevant information that can serve the need of who you're speaking with. This is how, when you sell to a customer, when you sell to a partner, when you sell to any person you're communicating with, this is how you can be always relevant, always on point, and not feel like you're going off in random directions. If you ever feel like you're just talking and you lost your true north, it's because you forgot about what that person was looking for. Okay? So you find their need, you then educate that prospect enough about how your solution can potentially help them. And the last part, to make it very simple, is sales is a conversation, right? It's a relationship. Sales is not, okay, here's my pitch. And at the end, I hope you say yes. Professional salespeople don't, it's actually not a surprise if someone says yes or no. When you get really good at selling, you should be so good to already know if your prospect's going to say yes or no by the end of it. It shouldn't be a guess. I think sometimes we think sales is this like shotgun and you kind of throw something in the air and hope something sticks. Sometimes we think sales is gambling, but sales should not be a gamble. Sales should be a very logical process that by the end, if you're with your prospects' needs and you're educating them and you're having a conversation, you should know very well by the end of it if they say yes or no. So, what do I mean by that? In your sales process, in your conversation, great salespeople have more conversation and ask more questions. For example, let's say I'm educating on this piece about these hormone balancing drops. I could educate and I could say, did you know that you have 50 hormones in the body? And our goal is to just educate four of them on four of them, balance that, and then everything's going to be amazing. And I could keep on talking through my presentation. But the better thing to do is as I go through the presentation, that I also have engagement, right? I'll say things like, does that point make sense? What are your thoughts on hormones? Were you aware of that? Do you feel like this information can help you towards your goal? It's a lot more questions than it is you just talking. The best presenters, the best salespeople, they lead with a lot of questions because it's a conversation, it's a relationship, it's not a one sided thing. Let's think about a dating example. How boring of a date would it be if all it was you were sitting down with your hot date and they only talked at you, not with you? Doesn't that make them feel and seem very selfish that they only care about talking about themselves? That's when you're talking about interesting information, not interested. So be mindful to yourself. Am I listening to my prospect? Am I actually having a conversation? When in doubt, ask a question. So if you ever hang out with me and you watch me do, whether it's a presentation or anything, you'll notice that I ask for a lot of feedback because I want to make sure it feels like a conversation. And this way, I'm not forcing an idea down your throat. This way, I'm walking with you and I'm bringing you from where you are to where I think you want to be. I'm selling you on this presentation on what effective sales is like. So if you notice, I brought us from where we're at, which is sales is potentially sleazy, to no, sales is professional. And I'm walking you through a couple of points together and I'm dialoguing with you, right? It's not this like, here's what it is. No, what do you think about this? Would you agree? Would you agree to take the next step with me? Okay. So the sales process is finding their need, is then communicating the value of your solution to align with their need. And then it's having a relationship, a conversation to make sure that they agree that this would solve their need. And at the end, it's a simple question. Do you feel like with what this is, can this solve the problem that you have? Ultimately, people don't buy products, people don't buy services, people buy solutions to their problems. And if you start to realize that as an effective sales leader, our number one mission is to get better at solving people's problems. If you solve problems all day, in this example with these body balancing drops, we're solving hormonal imbalance. The better that me and my team can get at that, solving that problem, the more that is going to be sold and the more that people are going to get paid. But if you start to understand that that's what the sales process is, then you're going to become a more effective sales leader and you can continue to scale that further as well too. Okay? So final note on this, sales is not sleazy. Sales is service. Sales is one of the most beautiful things you can do in the world because there's an abundance of solutions out there in the world. And there's a sea of people with problems that are praying for a solution. Our job as a sales leader is to equip us and our teams with the abilities to go connect those solutions that are out there with those people that have problems so that we can go solve more problems. If you solve more problems, you get paid a lot more. You do that, you create your own wealth. You do that, you write your own paycheck. So I wonder, what are your thoughts on sales? Is it something that you would consider yourself decently good at? Rate yourself on a 1 to 10. Can you get better at that? And if this was something interesting to you, be sure to share this, like this, and I'm going to come back more and share with you more tips on how to build seven-figure sales businesses. Other than that, hope this blessed you.